We've seen something strange.
If there's one thing we can say with certainty after having seen House of the Dragon Season 3 Episode 6, it's that the main instigators of the dance are now being hunted down by its participants, and perhaps fate itself. Spoiler warning if you haven't seen the episode yet, but Criston Cole's death marks the first of many to come. The civil war between the branches of House Targaryen is fast reaching its critical point, and the last 2 episodes of Season 3 will be as explosive as the first 2 were. But what exactly will we see next week? Well, these are our predictions for the same, so without further ado, let's get right to it.
You may refuse me as your sister, but I may compel you as your queen. Now tell me what you know.
Rhaenyra becomes the proto-Cersei Lannister. Ever since this season began, Rhaenyra Targaryen has been on her Cersei Lannister wave. And when we say Cersei Lannister, we mean book Cersei more than show Cersei. In the show, Cersei's paranoia feels somewhat justified, and she actually has a handful of powerful and cunning scenes. In the books, Cersei is legendary for her overinflated ego and her boneheaded decision-making, all of which Rhaenyra has embraced at an alarming speed. From the beginning of her journey, prophecy has been the element that's guided her toward victory. Just like how Cersei's decision to hate Tyrion stems from the prophecy that her younger brother would one day kill her. Rhaenyra ends up staring into the flames at the end of episode 3, much like how Cersei stared into the flames that engulfed the Tower of the Hand in the books, after she had it demolished with wildfire. They both find a certain resolve through fire, but that resolve is both murderous and maniacal, and Cersei has proven she's the embodiment of those words on multiple occasions. But Rhaenyra's living up to them just now. At the end of episode 6, she cooked up a scheme as harebrained as Cersei's. She sent Alicent Hightower to Harrenhal under the guise of keeping her promise to Aemon, so she can kill him. This is pretty much the same thing as Cersei sending one of her kettleback lovers to frame Marjorie as an adulteress, because Rhaenyra's not factoring how sending her enemy's mother to him might backfire on her. She's also now willing to use her authority as queen to violate boundaries she herself had previously established. All her life, Rhaenyra has claimed that she loves Helaena the best of her step-siblings, that she would spare the girl, and that she has no desire to hurt her or her children. But now that she knows Helaena is not only pregnant but also a dragon dreamer, she'll forget all of her previous courtesy because, like Cersei, Rhaenyra has become consumed by prophecy. Hers is not a death prophecy, but it might as well be, because it's such a vague one that she's like to drive herself insane deciphering it. That's why in the preview for episode 7, the only time we see Rhaenyra talking is when she warns Helaena that she can be refused as a sister, but not as a queen. Rhaenyra forcefully grabs Helena's hand and commands her to reveal the contents of her visions, which is also an eerie parallel to how Cersei got her life-altering prophecy. And the point we're trying to make here is simple. As the show has progressed, Rhaenyra's lost more of herself than she'd care to admit. And in Season 3, Episode 7, we'll see her become a character we've known and hated for a long time, purely because she's too paranoid to stop and think about things. She even has a female companion of dubious loyalty in Mysaria, like book Cersei had Taena Merryweather, and we all know that one thing Cersei has done that Rhaenyra hasn't. The defining moment of the Lannister Queen's insanity was her blowing up the Sept of Baelor with all her enemies still within it. And while Rhaenyra has adamantly refused attacking Tumbleton with dragons, she's also shown herself to be an extraordinarily impatient queen. Daemon keeps telling her that she should have burned the town before letting Ormond spread his roots across it. And as Alicent told Mysaria in Season 3, Episode 5, Daemon and Rhaenyra have always been more similar to one another than anyone would like to admit. If pressing Helaena for information doesn't work out, Rhaenyra might command 2 of the most horrible things we've seen her do as queen. Without Alicent there to protect her, she could force Helaena to terminate her pregnancy, and also give the order to her armies and dragon riders to march on Tumbleton with full force. Alicent has given the other girls moon tea as well during her time as queen, but the difference between her and Rhaenyra is that she knows how the game is played, and she plays it well. Rhaenyra wants to bend the game to her will, and as every ruler of Westeros finds out sooner or later, including Cersei Lannister, that never works. Daemon returns to the Vale, but for what? The Rogue Prince probably hasn't visited the Vale as much when his first wife was alive and well as he has during Season 3, and all of it seems to be for the sake of his daughter. When he first arrived to treat with Lady Jane, he had no idea what awaited him, and then he discovered the truth about Rhaenyra's involvement in the Battle of the Gullet, and endeavored to act as her father for the first time in his life. He killed an innocent shepherd to throw Rhaenyra off his daughter's stench, and he quietly trusted the implied relationship between Jane and Rhaena that allowed the latter to remain in the Vale. But Rhaena is a stupid child, and she keeps making moves that are disastrous for both her and her unspoken protector. In episode 6, she saw that Baela had visited Iron Oaks upon Moondancer, so she flew out to meet her. Baela knows that Rhaena and Sheepstealer were responsible for Jace's death, and Rhaena misses her sister, so it makes sense that they'd long to speak with one another. But Jane knows what Rhaena clearly doesn't, and that is if the people of Iron Oaks see the riders of these two dragons interacting with one another, then it won't be too long before the realm discovers her own treachery in keeping Rhaena safe. That's why she slaps her, kind of how Tyrion slaps Joffrey in Game of Thrones Season 2. The tone of their anger is decidedly different, but the lesson to the petulant child in front of them is exactly the same. Think before reacting, because reacting creates more trouble than it's worth. Rhaena has exposed herself despite demanding solitude, and the consequences will be dire for everyone involved. Perhaps that's why we see Daemon returning to the Vale in episode 7, because he's keenly aware of the delicate game he's now playing. Daemon thought that being bound to his wife by prophecy would make him the top of her priority list, but that's not been the case. Ormond's shadow war against Rhaenyra's gold cloaks has worked, with the High Command dead and Rhaenyra deciding to allocate the credit line he'd secured from Lady Jane for alms instead of wages. Much of the City Watch has deserted. Rhaenyra told Daemon that his lot was to take care of her capital streets and then turn his attention towards Vhagar and Ormond. But it looks like Daemon's now going to do what he does best. He's going to listen to himself. He's going to fly to the Vale instead, and he's going to have a conversation with both Rhaena and Lady Jane. We saw this because we see Caraxe's shadow flying over the mountains of the moon in the preview for episode 7. To his daughter, he will most likely propose a scheme. We do see Sheepstealer bellowing at the end of the preview, and if there's anyone that's truly on Rhaena's side now, it's Daemon. He'll know that with Vhagar on the loose, the Vale needs Rhaena, being the closest kingdom to the Riverlands. Perhaps that's also the line he'll take to secure more men for the Blacks, because it's clear to them that one army isn't going to cut it. Their current force will be required to deal with the High Towers, but the Baratheon army is fresh, rested, and provisioned, and hasn't even entered the stage yet. Lord Boros is in the Red Mountains hunting another Vulture King, and Cregan Stark's army is still near the neck. The Vale is the only place that can resupply the capital with soldiers, and do so rapidly. Daemon might not be the best diplomat, but he is a reliable military leader, and the grand armies of Westeros are all set to clash with one another before this season ends. It's weird to say it this way, but Daemon might be serving the prophecy of Ice and Fire more than Rhaenyra, and we suspect his visit to the Vale will be presented as proof of that. Maidenpool was mentioned in episode 6, and Maidenpool is where Daemon and Nettles make their base as they hunt for Aemon and Vhagar in the books. Rhaena has completely stepped into Nettles' skin in the show, and while Daemon might not go to Maidenpool in season 3, his eventual arrival there has been set up adequately by the show, and we're comfortable with including that as a prediction for the broader future of the series rather than just the next episode. But coming back to the next episode, what strange things did Addam and Baela see at Harrenhal? While the previous generation of Targaryens and Valerians are busy tearing each other apart, the next generation is doing everything it can to get closer to one another. Addam and Baela have become fast friends thanks to their shared search for Aemon and Vhagar, and Alan and Baela finally consummated their budding romance. This might not be revealed to Rhaenyra herself, given Baela's betrothal to Jace and the unease between their two houses, but it's something to keep in mind all the same because it sets up the future of House Velaryon. In the books, Alan and Baela's relationship becomes official. They get married and have 2 children, with Baela being the last known Targaryen to marry into House Velaryon. Also, Baela's supposed to be on Dragonstone right about now because her presence in the capital has changed an important plot with regards to Aegon Targaryen. We'll get to that in a few seconds, because it's important to the overall narrative. But before we do that, let's go back to Addam and Baela for a moment. In Season 3, their main job following the Gullet seems to be keeping an eye out for Vhagar so Rhaenyra can end Aemon's threat once and for all. They've been camping at around the same spot where Addam, Ulf, and Hugh were at the beginning of the season. Baela's been pushing herself beyond her limits, and Addam's been requesting her to take time off, but she won't, and the Queen won't fully approve it, so it's possible that a combination of her tiredness and his wariness is what's making them see strange things in the preview for Season 3, Episode 7. But there are 2 other possibilities here. The first of which is Addam and Baela end up meeting the Green Man the former only glimpsed previously. This would line up with the events from the books because it's around the time First Tumbleton breaks out that Addam goes to the God's Eye to seek the Green Men's wisdom. Alternatively, this could be Addam and Baela witnessing some strange magic triggered by Alice Rivers, because episode 6 showed us something that could alter the series' trajectory forever. In her seduction of Aemon, Alice uses a clutch of dragon eggs that Dreamfire left in Harrenhal decades ago. She was there because her first rider, the first Rhaenyra Targaryen, spent her final years in the castle, and Alice knows that the dragon eggs have power. It's only after handing Aemon one that she gets him to fully submit to her, and in the books, there's a rumor that Alice gets a dragon of her own in the aftermath of the dance. While seeing a green man or a vision concocted by Alice is the best possible explanation for the strange things that Adam and Baela see on their vigil, the possibility of them glimpsing a newborn dragon isn't non-zero, and we'd be more than excited to see how the show handles the dragon's birth, as well as the rest of the implications of its existence this early on in the timeline. But what we do believe will happen next episode is after experiencing this strange event near Harrenhal, Adam and Baela will split up, with Adam returning to resolve the mystery and have his audience and Baela crossing the narrow sea. That's because something happened in episode 6 that changed the entire board this game's played on, and that is how Corlys Velaryon's kidnapping will change the game. Aegon's next move. At the end of episode 6, Corlys Velaryon, Hand of the Queen, was kidnapped by Ormond Hightower's right-hand man, Bull Jon Roxton. We'd been wondering why the show sent Corlys out of King's Landing to hunt Triarchy stragglers, when in the books, he was advising his queen from the small council chamber. We know now it was to make Ormond a much bigger threat, because at this point in the narrative of Fire and Blood, he's already dead. It looks like the show is merging him with characters like Hobart Hightower, who was crucial in the aftermath of First Tumbleton, and who shaped the line of both Old Town and King's Landing for centuries with his actions. But Corlys Velaryon's kidnapping has more implications than just giving Ormond a piece that improves his prospects. And shout out to Gwaine Hightower too, because he seems to be the one coordinating Corlys' capture based on the preview for episode 7. Corlys' kidnapping changes the situation in the Gullet drastically, because without him, House Velaryon now no longer has an official head. In episode 6, Rhaenyra was informed by Alan of Corlys' plan to return to Driftmark and send her more men whilst repairing his own ships. This is something that happens in the books as well, though it doesn't take his father's disappearance for Rhaenyra to spur herself into action. Corlys sends him to Driftmark personally, and also takes charge of most other decisions until things eventually break down. In the show, Corlys wants to be as distant from her as he can, and it looks like his disappearance will serve as the catalyst for Rhaenyra to finally legitimize his sons. With him gone and her being as paranoid as she is, Rhaenyra could take Corlys' disappearance as a permanent loss, and she's already seen that Alan's advice works. She's brought home the cats that become the ancestors of the cats Arya Stark chases in Game of Thrones, and she's petty enough to consider that a greater service than a pledge of all Velaryon ships, gold, and men to her cause. When Alan takes his post, Baela will probably go with him on the pretext of keeping his ships safe. Rhaenyra's general annoyance at Corlys' quote-unquote abandoning of her will turn into proper rage, and she might have that outburst on Baela we saw her having in the promo material for Season 3. Then she sends her dead son's former fiancé off to Driftmark with her new prospective husband and Velaryon scion, and prepares to fly to Tumbleton herself. If Jon Roxton brings Corlys to the city, then Rhaenyra will have even more reason to not burn it down, because now her hand would be trapped inside. It could be a situation similar to the Defiance of Duskendale, when the Darklands imprisoned the Mad King, only with the role of Aerys and his hand Tywin Lannister now reversed. Ormond seems to respect Corlys a great deal, so when he's brought to him, he will no doubt try converting him to the Green's cause. With the main cast focused on the south, no one major will be looming eastward, and that's what will give Aegon Targaryen the opportunity to regain his footing. He has Larys Strong and Tywin Lannister with him. He now knows what everyone sees him as, and has seemingly resolved not to change, but to further impose himself upon those sworn to him. He has Tyland and Larys bury Janos, the abusive garrison commander at Rook's Rest, in a shallow grave, because he doesn't care about being discovered anymore. In the preview for episode 7, there are a couple of saddled and bridled horses behind Aegon, so clearly he and his companions get several upgrades while traveling along the coastline of the Crownlands. But even with all the black forces scattered, Aegon can't take King's Landing like his uncrowned namesake because he doesn't have money, armies, or dragons. He might get the first two if he goes west like Tyland suggests, but that road is so perilous that even Aegon knows fleeing to Essos is a better bet. But if word of Corlys' capture and the rest of what we've just discussed reaches his ears, he might be more inclined to agree with Larys' very first suggestion, because now going to Dragonstone will have more purpose. If Sunfire is actually dead, Aegon can go back to his ancestral home and get himself either a new egg or a new dragon from the remaining wild ones. If Sunfire isn't dead, which we think he isn't, Aegon will reunite with his dragon in episode 7 and then fly to Dragonstone around the same time Alan and Baela go to Driftmark. This is important because Aegon and Baela have a destined dance together, and by this point in the book, they were both in their designated positions. Neither is in the show, and it takes Corlys Velaryon's kidnapping for that to change. It just goes to show you that the power and influence of the Sea Snake, that both sides can't stand him but want his support as well. And we'll be very interested in seeing how far the show stretches book canon from here on out. because our final prediction isn't really a prediction, but it also kinda is.
And your sons will be Targaryen princes.
Aemon's marriage to Alicent. Will Alicent accomplish her mission? In episode 6, Rhaenyra makes the most desperate decision of her reign. She sends Alicent Hightower to Harrenhal to kill her own son, as proof that she will continue to stay loyal to her childhood friend over her house and family. The crazy thing about this isn't what Rhaenyra demands, it's what Alicent agrees to, because the preview for episode 7 shows her arriving at Harrenhal. She's in such a desperate position now that Helena's pregnancy has been revealed that she would go to her son, who has dangerous incestuous feelings for her, despite not wanting to do so. Alicent orchestrated the downfall of the Hightowers, but this is one structure whose collapse hasn't occurred as planned. It feels like no matter how hard she tries to undermine the Hightowers, they come back even stronger, almost as if individuals have individual motivations. But the individual Alicent needs to worry about most right now is Alice Rivers, because she'll see just how far gone her son is when she reaches Harrenhal. Whatever control she might have hoped to exert upon him through his attraction to her is now non-existent, because Alice slept with Aemon in episode 6 and has his seed and soul in her thrall. In fact, it looks like Alicent will be the one to marry Aemon and Alice, because there's a shot in the preview where she's staring at the two of them as they hold their hands together. The background is the God's Wood, and that pose is one Westerosi only assume when they're to be wed. Standing in front of a heart tree and getting married is the old gods' way of marriage, and Alicent being the person to marry Aemon and Alice adds an interesting wrinkle to the future. If she's the one who oversees it, she can't deny it, and any child Alice has will be an official heir, which she also can't deny. It looks like the series will definitely give us Witch Queen Alice reign and the resolution to her mystery child and dragon storyline that Fire and Blood left unfinished. But to add on to that, this will also be the moment Alicent knows she's lost everyone and everything. She could receive word of Cole's death after reaching Harrenhal. She will learn how Rhaenyra mistreated her daughter if she returns to the capital. She's already seen Aemon being enslaved by another woman and Daemon by another man, and she doesn't even know that Aegon's still alive. While Alicent will succeed at reaching Harrenhal, she won't be able to kill Aemon because he's destined to die at Daemon's hand. She will, however, steal the death warrant for the rest of her family by either marrying him to Alice or serving as a witness to their wedding. And that's our final prediction for what will happen in House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 7, because the rest we've already discussed in our previous videos. You should go check those out if you haven't already. And also let us know what you think will happen in Episode 7 in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more dragon content, and we'll see you guys soon with yet another video. Until then, stay safe and have a great day.